The beta test for the crazily hyped Star Wars Battlefront has finally arrived, and today I'm going to be going through my thoughts and feedback boiled down into a single quick video so that your time isn't wasted. I come at this game having immensely enjoyed Battlefront 1 and 2, as well as enjoying DICE's previous shooters like Battlefield 2, 2142, 3 and to a lesser extent 4, as well as Bad Company 2. So then, let's get right into the gunplay, because this is a first-person shooter. Gunplay is very simple in Battlefront. There isn't a lot of depth, but being, Star Wars, well, that makes a bit of sense. Stormtroopers aren't exactly going to get into FaZe Clan anytime soon. Of course, being Star Wars again, your guns will be firing slow-moving lasers. That's a bit of an oxymoron, but the projectile travel time really does affect how you aim in this game. This absolutely differentiates it from quite a few other shooters, and it also makes things like bunny hopping and constantly strafing almost essential to doing well, especially in close-quarters combat. If you stand still, you will get destroyed. While it certainly is very simple, I actually think it's kind of satisfying. Given how the gunplay of the past Battlefront titles was also extremely basic, I think it works out fine, and it's more a feature that relies on its scale. Another really nice feature is a Gears of War style reload mechanic. When you overheat your blaster, you can tap R at just the right time to instantly cool it down. If you miss time though, you get an extended cooldown period. That's a nice level of risk and reward that serves to add a little bit more depth to the gunplay. You also don't have a sidearm in this game, which is a bit strange, but you do have a series of equipable and usable items. These are in the form of cards, and you unlock them basically via your out-of-match progression via credits, and they include things like a thermal detonator, also known as a grenade, a sniper rifle, and a jump pack. The sniper rifle's a one-shot kill to the head, but it does 90 out of 100 damage to a player on a body shot. It's super powerful, but you can only shoot it maybe once every 20 seconds. The thermal detonators are also really powerful, big radius, lots of damage, and you can actually bounce them around surfaces, which opens up some nice tactical options. The jetpack adds a lot of movement into the combat and is definitely very satisfying to use. So overall, combat in this game is pretty simplistic, but it is definitely quite satisfying, and it does fit the bill. Next up, game modes. There are 3 in the beta. Survival is just your regular horde mode. It's locked to one map, it only lasts 6 rounds, and it's also on easy mode, so there really isn't enough gameplay there to get a good grip on it. Next, you've got drop pods. This is a small 8v8 team fight where each side captures drop pods, which spawn onto the map from time to time. It's your standard capture and hold map type. Overall, it's decently fun, but combined with the game's rather basic combat, there just isn't much to hold interest here. Plus, the map that actually is on the beta currently is very corridor-based and just doesn't feel that inspired. However, it is extremely pretty to look at. Having such simple combat would suggest a focus on larger game modes to hold people's interests, and that certainly would be the case for Battlefront 1 and 2. This moves us on to the next mode, which is Walker Assault. This is one of their attempts to have the really large battles that the past games were so well known for. Sadly, this attempt is a rather poor one. They've constantly pushed in their marketing this being called Walker Assault, but in reality, it's pretty much just rush mode from Battlefield with a few tweaks. So the Empire have to escort 2 AT-ATs towards a final rebel base. Along the way, there are 3 sets of uplink stations. The rebels have to defend those stations in order to spawn NPC-controlled Y-Wing fighters, which will then attack the AT-ATs. Now, when the Y-Wings are active, the AT-ATs are actually vulnerable to attack from regular players' gunfire, so the rebels then have got to fire everything that they've got. That might seem confusing, but basically, you capture the points, then you shoot the AT-ATs, and it's all good. As for the Empire, well, they have to ensure that the rebels don't actually succeed in using their uplink stations so that the Empire AT-ATs are kept safe. Now, there is a slight problem here where the Empire doesn't have to strategize. They can just turn up, turn on derp mode, and get attacking, and they'll do fine. The rebels, however, well, they will absolutely need to play the objective in order to win this fight. Now, in past Battlefield and Battlefront games, where maybe the sides weren't perfectly balanced by virtue of the way the game mode was set up, the problem was really averted by having a ticket-based spawning system that would give more lives to the side who are essentially running themselves into a meat grinder. Something like that could have worked here and maybe would have helped out with how the balance works, but as it stands, nah, it's not really a thing. Now, this mode also has vehicles, but they are nothing like the past Battlefront or Battlefield games. The vehicles spawn as power-ups on the map. This is beyond silly as far as I'm concerned. It removes a layer of strategy from the game, and it just makes the thing feel very lacking in depth. The idea of spawning at a base that contains certain vehicles and then heading out into the battlefield has always been a very effective thing, and it just does not exist here. It seems like this, as well as a few other design decisions, have more to do with production issues than game design. Star Wars The Force Awakens is coming out very soon, and I wouldn't be surprised if numerous mechanics and things that were a bit more tricky to pull off were basically just cut to make the release date. Because it is pretty simple, you just run into a power-up, hit a button, now you're magically in a vehicle. There's a lot less work involved in doing that. In spite of all that though, this mode is entertaining in small bursts. It just doesn't really have a great amount of depth to it. And that brings us on to vehicles. Vehicles are a different matter entirely. They control terribly, and they're just not at all fun to use. Past the fact that you can get a crazy high kill streak with them, so that bit's fun. But the vehicle mechanics themselves are rubbish. They're terrible. And it's really strange seeing it's a DICE game. They've been doing vehicles in games for a very long time. Ship combat is by far the worst that I've ever seen in a game as well. You can, from time to time in Walker Assault, get yourself into a, like a TIE fighter or something like that. And they control terribly. Now, this is both with gamepad and keyboard and mouse. It quite simply is just awful. It boggles the mind how those sort of starfighter mechanics actually made it into this game. Really strange, and absolutely is to the detriment of the overall experience. Especially seeing as how important being able to use X-Wing fighters is for the Rebels, because they're super powerful, which is totally a nice nod to the series. Yeah, it's just a very unfortunate situation that we have with vehicles, both on the ground and in the air. Next up, we've got the aesthetics. Now, in no way can I fault DICE's visual work. This game looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it really, really is beautiful. The maps themselves are also very impressive. Unfortunately, Hoth doesn't really live up to the scale of Hoth in some of the past Battlefront games, but certainly it all looks pretty, and Solist is essentially the Blue Lagoon from Iceland, but a little bit more hardcore, just kind of a nice little nod to those of us who've actually been there. Anyway, in terms of the optimization of this game, I had no issues running it at 4K 60 FPS. That is using SLI 980s, but still, I'm surprised. I mean, hell, it even runs at 60 FPS on the consoles, which is a nice bonus. Now, DICE are also renowned when it comes to their sound design. Playing their games with a good set of headphones, generally, it just sounds like you're really in the thick of it, and this strength carries over into Battlefront, which is, of course, aided by borrowing the excellent sound design and music from the franchise. So overall, how is this beta stacking up? Well, for the most part, it feels like you're just kind of regular, large-ish team shooter with a Star Wars-y skin and a few nice little elements. You know, does it feel different to DICE's Battlefield series? Absolutely, it really does. But on the same note, it doesn't really feel similar to the Battlefront franchise. It's not really that much of either, I suppose. The true test of whether this is going to be good is when we get our hands on Supremacy mode, which is essentially Conquest mode. Now, the Walker Assault stuff just proved to be too simple and too streamlined, so hopefully Supremacy is going to redeem this game for me. Overall, the game's mechanics just... they don't seem set up to provide fun, sort of smaller team-based things. I think that's more the realms of your Counter-Strikes, your Team Fortresses, your Call of Duties, games like that. Though I have only tried the drop pod mode, so full judgment will have to wait there. If Fighter Squadron mode has controls anything like the ship combat I've already experienced, then it's just a lost cause. So it very much feels like this game is hampered by how it actually has to tie into the movie. There is no single player of consequence, Galactic Conquest doesn't exist either, and that doesn't matter too much to me personally, but I do have a bit of a worry that this game will end up like Titanfall, where there just isn't really enough content to hold people's interests. The scope of this game does seem to be pretty limited overall. So is this a game for hardcore FPS fans? No, I don't think it is. Is this a game for people who love the Battlefront franchise of old? I don't think so. I don't think they've really managed to nail what that game felt like. This is definitely its own thing, but it's its own thing in in the way that it's a bit generic and just doesn't feel as special, but hey, it's shiny. Star Wars fans will certainly get a lot of enjoyment out of many elements of this, and given its very broad appeal design, I think a lot of people will have fun with it. I just don't think it's going to inspire much long-term devotion, and much of that comes down to the fact that it just feels like features have been snipped out of this game, and it could do with just having a bit more mechanical depth overall. So do I think I will play it when it comes out? Well, I'll probably read reviews and see what the other modes are like. Overall, we're going to get 13 maps, and while this video has not been the most positive, it is my beta feedback. Obviously, things could change by the time the game actually comes out. However, I would caution you that this game comes out on, the 1st of December, and that is really not that long from the actual recording of this video, especially in terms of the timelines involved with game development. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments or my Twitter, and I will see you next time.